A young Nigerian woman called Amina had spent months preparing for her wedding in her small African village. Everything had to be perfect, from the colorful kente cloth decorations to the traditional dishes that would feed the guests. Her family had been bustling with excitement, ensuring that the ceremony would be the pride of their community. Amina couldn't wait to marry Adei, the love of her life, in front of everyone she cared about. The morning of the wedding was alive with energy. Women pounded yam and stirred pots of spicy soup over open fires, while men helped set up the ceremonial canopies under the shade of tall baobab trees. Children ran around, laughing and playing, their faces painted with joy. Drummers practiced their rhythms, filling the air with lively beats that promised celebration. When Amina stepped out of her family's hut, dressed in her flowing ivory and gold gown, the crowd cheered. Her head was wrapped in a beautifully embroidered jewel, and her jewelry sparkled in the sunlight. She felt like a queen walking to meet her king. The village elder, Baba Musa, stood at the center of the square, ready to officiate the union. The stage was set for what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. For a few days before the wedding, Amina had felt a little uneasy. She chalked it up to the stress of planning such a big event. Her stomach had been acting up, but she told herself it was nothing. Perhaps she had eaten too much pepper soup during the preparations. As the ceremony began, Amina stood beside Adei, their hands joined as Baba Musa recited blessings. The crowd clapped and ululated, showering the couple with prayers for a happy and prosperous life. But just as Amina lifted her head to smile at Adei, a sharp, stabbing pain tore through her abdomen. Amina gasped and doubled over, clutching her stomach. The pain was unlike anything she had ever felt. Her legs gave way beneath her, and she collapsed to the ground. The crowd fell silent. Adei knelt beside her, his face filled with worry. "What's happening?" he asked, but Amina could barely hear him over the pounding in her ears. Her vision blurred as the pain intensified, and she cried out. Amina's family and friends rushed to her side. Her mother, Mama Efua, fanned her face, while the women gathered to help. They whispered prayers and poured cool water over her head. But Amina's cries only grew louder. "It feels like I'm giving birth," she managed to gasp. The crowd erupted into murmurs. "But she's not pregnant," someone said. "How can this be?" Adei stood at a distance, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. A storm brewed behind his eyes as he watched the scene unfold. Whispers from the crowd reached his ears, feeding the doubts already troubling him. Was she hiding something from me? He thought bitterly. His jaw clenched as he recalled moments when Amina had seemed distracted in recent weeks. Was this why? The elder women, experienced in childbirth, quickly took charge. They laid Amina on a mat and surrounded her with privacy cloths. The drummers stopped playing, and the only sound was Amina's anguished cries. Minutes felt like hours as the women worked to comfort her. Then a sound broke through the tension, a bleating noise. The women froze at what they saw. One of the elders, trembling, lifted the creature that had just emerged. It was a baby lamb, wet and wriggling, its tiny legs kicking in the air. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the cloths were drawn back to reveal the strange scene. Amina, pale and drenched in sweat, stared in shock. Adai's mouth felt open. The villagers began to murmur, their voices tinged with fear and disbelief. The crowd parted as Nana Korkor, the village's oldest storyteller, stepped forward. Leaning on her walking stick, she surveyed the scene with sharp eyes. Nana Korkor was known for her deep knowledge of the village's history and traditions. She approached the baby lamb, her face grim. "This is no ordinary event," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. This is the work of a curse. The crowd muted, and all eyes turned to Nana Korkor as she began to explain. Years ago, Amina's grandmother Abena had been accused of stealing a farmer's sheep. The farmer, a man named Kwabena, had been furious. He believed the theft had ruined his livelihood, and in his anger he had placed a curse on Abena and her descendants. He said no daughter of her bloodline would know peace, Nana Korkor continued, and now the curse has manifested. Amina felt tears streaming down her face. She had heard whispers of this story as a child, but had never thought it could be true. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice shaking. Nana Korkor nodded approvingly. "The curse can be undone, but it will not be easy. You must find Kwabena's descendants and seek their forgiveness. Only then can we perform the ritual to lift the curse." Time was of the essence. Nana Korkor warned that if they delayed, the curse could worsen, affecting not just Amina, but the entire village. Amina and Adei agreed to begin the journey immediately. The lamb, wrapped in a cloth, was handed to Mama Efua for safekeeping. The journey to find Kwabena's descendants took Amina and Adei to a neighboring village. The path was long and dusty, winding through fields of cassava and maize. Along the way, Nana Korkor shared more of the story, filling in details Amina had never known. Kwabena had been a proud and hard-working man, but the loss of his sheep had left him bitter. When they reached the village, they were directed to Kwesi, Kwabena's grandson. Kwesi lived in a modest hut at the edge of the village, surrounded by overgrown shrubs. At first he was wary of the strangers at his door, but his expression softened when Amina explained everything and showed him the lamb. "My grandfather regretted that curse," Kwesi admitted. "He spoke of it often before he died. He wanted to undo it but didn't know how." Kwesi agreed to help them. Together, they returned to Amina's village to prepare for the ritual. The ritual was set to take place at the site where the original conflict had occurred, an old field now overgrown with grass. The villagers gathered as Nana Korkor and Kwesi led the preparations. A lamb from Amina's family's flock was brought as an offering, symbolizing reconciliation. As the sun set, the air grew heavy with anticipation. The firelight flickered, casting shadows on the faces of the gathered crowd. Nana Korkor and Kwesi chanted prayers, calling on the ancestors to witness the ceremony. Amina and Adei knelt before the fire, their hands clasped tightly. The lamb Amina had delivered was placed at the center of the circle. As the prayers reached their peak, a strange calm fell over the field. But before the ritual could begin, Nana Korkor announced, "The ancestors require a test. Amina must prove her innocence before the curse can be lifted." The crowd murmured in surprise, and Adei turned to Amina, his face a mix of concern and doubt. "I have done nothing wrong," Amina said, her voice steady despite the weight of everyone's eyes on her. "I will prove it." Nana Korkor handed Amina a calabash filled with sacred water. "You must drink this and step into the fire," she said. "If your heart is pure, the flames will not harm you." Amina took a deep breath, lifted the calabash to her lips, and drank. The water was bitter, but she swallowed it all. Then, with the crowd holding their breath, she walked toward the fire. The flames crackled and leaped as she stepped into the circle. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a cool wind swept through the field, and the fire died down around her feet. Amina stood unharmed. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Nana Korkor held up her hand for silence. "The ancestors have spoken. Amina is innocent." She turned to Adei. "Do you now believe her?" Adei's eyes were filled with tears. He stepped forward and took Amina's hands. "I never should have doubted you," he said. "I'm sorry." The ritual resumed. As Nana Korkor and Kwesi chanted prayers, the lamb Amina had delivered was placed at the center of the circle. The fire roared back to life, engulfing the lamb. But instead of burning, the lamb began to glow. Its form shimmered and grew faint until it evaporated into a golden mist that rose into the night sky. "The curse has been lifted," Nana Korkor declared. "No child shall be born from a curse." The village erupted in cheers and ululations. Amina and Adei embraced, tears streaming down their faces. The crowd surged forward to congratulate them, their relief and joy evident in their smiles. Nana Korkor stepped forward, raising her arms. "The ancestors are pleased. Now let us celebrate this new beginning." The village square quickly transformed into a vibrant scene of celebration. The drummers returned, their beats louder and more jubilant than ever, filling the air with rhythm. Women brought out trays of food, jollof rice, roasted plantains, grilled fish, and steaming bowls of spicy soup. Gourds of palm wine were passed around, and the aroma of freshly prepared meals wafted through the night air. As the festivities began, Adei and Amina were led to the center of the square, where they performed a traditional dance to signify unity and resilience. The villagers surrounded them, clapping and singing songs of joy. Children wound in excitement, and elders nodded approvingly, their faces lit with contentment. Kwesi, now an honored guest, was treated with the utmost respect. He shared stories of his grandfather and spoke of the importance of forgiveness and harmony. Mama Efua couldn't stop beaming, proud that her daughter's perseverance had brought the village together. The celebrations stretched late into the night. Lanterns lit the square, casting a warm glow over the dancing crowd. Amina and Adei sat side by side, watching their people celebrate. For the first time in weeks, Amina felt peace. Adei reached for her hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "We've been through so much," he said softly. "But tonight, we start a new chapter." Amina smiled. "Together." As the moon climbed higher into the sky, the villagers' laughter and music carried on, a testament to their resilience and unity. This was more than a wedding celebration. It was a renewal of hope, a reminder that love and community could overcome even the darkest of curses. Thank you for watching, and if you listened to this video, please like and share